Hello, welcome to the Bread of Life channel. So excited that you guys are here today. I'm here with Kyle, and Kyle has two YouTube channels. One is called Kyle, one is called Christian Simplicity. And his channels have great content about Christian minimalism or being minimalist, and also just discussions on different topics related to faith. And so welcome, Kyle.
Thank you. Yeah, so my name's Kyle. I have two YouTube channels, like she said, Christian Simplicity. That one's about minimalism. If you don't know what that is, it's just about living below your means. Like in America, it's so much about consumerism, and minimalism is all about living below your means, decluttering your mind, your life, your wallet, your soul, and getting off that, living below your means, investing the rest of the money so you can become financially free. So that's more of a lifestyle channel. And then Kyle is all about defending Orthodox Christianity against atheists, the Darwin believers, Protestants, Catholics. I have a video about Muslims coming this Friday. But yeah, those are my two channels. And then, so a little bit about me. So I was raised with no religion. I used to believe in evolution until around 2019. I felt drawn to the truth. I was discerning all the religions. I ended up becoming a Catholic. And then after being in the Catholic world, getting into traditional Catholicism and the Latin Mass, understanding church history, I eventually became Eastern Orthodox. And I was received into the Orthodox Church this year. And so first, I would like to start off why atheism doesn't work. There is no work on atheism because work presupposes some knowledge of how things are supposed to work. There's no reason to be an atheist because there is no ought on atheism, because you cannot derive an ought from an is, meaning that an atheist can describe how the world is, but from that it will always be a non sequitur to say how the world ought to be. For example, an atheist can say suffering is happening, but it will always be a non sequitur to say suffering ought not to happen. On atheism, it will always be an invalid leap. Non sequitur is just a logical fallacy. This is the is-ought dilemma. So on atheism, it will always be an arbitrary, subjective starting point to go from what the world is to get normative statements of how the world ought to be. And so when atheists, Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris, they love to say, oh, religion has held back progress. It's been so bad for society. We'd be better off if we were religious. And all I have to do as a presuppositional apologist is question your presuppositions. This good you're talking about, what's that? This bad progress, what's the progress? And you have to just keep drilling down, asking why. This good, just keep asking atheists, good, bad, what's that? You have a purely material worldview. Where's the good? I can't see the good in the test tube, in the telescope. Where's the good? And so what you'll see is that every atheist has completely arbitrary starting points. Normally it starts with, maximize human happiness, reduce human suffering. And I, as someone who questions your presuppositions, can say why. There's no reason to do that because you cannot derive an ought from an is. On atheism, there is no good. There is no bad. There's no reason to follow the true or the false, because all of this presupposes ethics. There is no ethics. There is only subjective taste preference on atheism. And so when an atheist wants to get up here and they want to argue, well, you're presupposing that we ought to follow the true over the false, which there's no reason to do on atheism. There's no reason to do anything. It's an empty, meaningless universe. There's no reason to follow the true over the false. And so if an atheist puts a value on the true, on the good, that doesn't exist. It's completely subjective. It's ad hoc. It's arbitrary. Why? Because an atheist feels like it. They use their atheist feelings as an argument. They say, oh, religion is so much harm. It has held back progress. None of these exist on atheism. It's just your feelings. You need to give an objective account of how these things actually exist, which they don't exist on your system. They're completely subjective, and it's ad hoc. And if you're arbitrary and ad hoc in a debate, you have lost the debate. They need to give an account of why we ought to follow the true or the false, what the good is, what the bad is, before they even talk. And because there is no ethics, atheists can say, oh, it doesn't lead to nihilism, but it always does. Because if there is no meaning, where does it come from? If it's just a human construct, then it's completely subjective. It's arbitrary. Again, it's ad hoc. You have lost the debate if you are arbitrary and ad hoc. And the atheist thinks they're so brave, saying, I'm so brave. The world is meaningless. And you're just scared to say that. Okay, the world is meaningless. Your life is meaningless. This conversation is meaningless. Your argument is meaningless. It is complete absurdity in its self-refuting. And so next I'm going to talk about the affirmative, the argument for God. But did you have any questions about what I just said?
Oh, I have so many questions, but I'm loving this. As Cameron said, Rebecca's loving this. Yeah, you're right. I am loving this. This is great. However, I guess I do. Well, no. I'll let you finish, and then we can do questions at the end. Go for it.
Okay. So next, that's where I step in. I've questioned the atheist presuppositions, showing that they are completely arbitrary. They can never be epistemically justified on their claims about ethics because it is a denial of ethics. It's all just subjective. So that's when I come in with the transcendental argument for God. The transcendental arguments are the strongest form of argumentation. It's in the Bible. It's in the church fathers. Kant loved transcendental arguments. And so this is the argument, is that the revealed God is a necessary precondition for the possibility of not only ethics, but metaphysics, for epistemology, for the uniformity of nature, for objective truth. And I'm not just arbitrarily saying, oh, the revealed God. I'm saying it because no other system can accurately give an account for the metaphysics of the universe. The Far East, they embrace contradiction. They fall into solipsism. It's all an illusion, bro. But that's not true, and none of them are consistent because they say, oh, it's an illusion. But does a Hindu live that way when they're balancing their checkbook, when they're doing calculus? No, they don't. Obviously, there is objective truth. You need a worldview that metaphysics can account for the actual reality. And so that leaves us to Islam versus Christianity, because Judaism is fulfilled in Christianity. Islam and Western Christianity fall into the errors of absolute divine simplicity. They are not able to actually make real distinctions in God. And so it falls into boxes of contradiction. Only in the East, only Eastern Orthodox metaphysics can accurately give an account for the real distinctions in God, because we alone have the essence energies distinction. So it is the affirmation of the revealed God, not a generic God. There is no generic God. There is only the God that revealed himself. And the strength of the transcendental argument is that it's the impossibility of the contrary. If you deny the necessary preconditions, God, the revealed God, then you have not only destroyed the possibility of ethics, but metaphysics, of ever being epistemically justified, of ever doing anything. This is the route that skepticism went down, because David Hume actually asked these questions. And all I'm doing is calling these atheists to consistency, because they say they can never be epistemically justified in their claims on metaphysics, ethics, and epistemology, all things that are required for a worldview. And they will use metaphysics, they will use ethics and epistemology, but they can't justify it. And so it is a self-refuting position. And this is why atheism has gone the route of abandoning philosophy. You have all the pop atheists who have no philosophical training. They all have training in life sciences, and they make the most basic logical fallacies because they are not philosophically trained. They say, don't do philosophy. Neil deGrasse Tyson says, don't do philosophy. Stephen Hawking, philosophy is unnecessary because they can never be epistemically justified. And if you study philosophy, you can call them out because they are inconsistent. Instead of doing philosophy, now they embrace psychologism and physics. That can explain everything, but it can't, because there are pre-scientific questions. I mean, there's no physical evidence for logic. No amount of test tubes and telescopes can tell you where the logic is, can tell you where the ethics is. There are necessary preconditions for the world that we experience. There are pre-scientific questions that you need philosophy for. An atheist can never be epistemically justified. Only the Orthodox Christian, only the Christian who has a revealed God can give an account for the world and has a coherent view of metaphysics, epistemology, and ethics, all things that are essential for a worldview. And now it's hard to now understand why it's Eastern Orthodoxy and not Protestantism or Catholicism. The theological issues are kind of hard to understand. So I think it's easier to understand church history. So Jesus comes, there's all these messianic prophecies. Jesus fulfills them all. He crucified, he's died. There's Pentecost. The Holy Spirit comes down on the apostles. And Jesus ordains the first bishops. The bishops, the apostles, those are the first bishops. They had the binding and loosing powers. They didn't have the canon of scripture yet. They had the Old Testament, but some of them were still being written. So the church is what is being spread around the world, because there is no official canon of the gospel yet. So the church is going around, and all of Christianity is unified for the first 1,000 years. And during this first 1,000 years, they had these things called ecumenical councils, because Christianity was oppressed for the first hundreds of years until they're able to, it finally got legalized, they're finally able to get together and clarify what it means to be a Christian. So that's where you have the first council at Nicaea, where we get the Nicene Creed. And also important Trinitarian doctrines, clarifying what Christians believe. And this is the first point, is that Protestants are inconsistent because they will accept the normative authority of the church to give us the Nicene Creed, but they'll reject the other ecumenical councils, and I'll go over that later. But the Protestants also accept the Nicene Creed with the added Roman Catholic innovation of the Filioque. This would eventually cause a great schism, is the Roman Catholic Church, the West, added to the creed the Filioque. So the normative authority of the church, we had ecumenical councils. We had 6 more. And on the 7th ecumenical council, this is another reason why Protestants are inconsistent, is we talk about the veneration of icons. So some Protestants think this is idolatry, that we're praying to pictures. We are not praying to pictures. We are simply venerating. It's like having a picture of a family member you love, and we are asking for their intercessory prayers because they are saints and we know they're in heaven. Icons, we're not worshiping them, we're venerating them. And it's not just optional. This is what it means to be a Christian. And it's completely inconsistent for Protestants to deny the 7th ecumenical council and accept the first. Another way they're inconsistent is the church with the local synods. That's how we got the canon of Scripture. So it's inconsistent for the Protestant to accept the normative authority of the church, to give them Nicene Creed, to give them all these key teachings, to give them the canon of Scripture, but then deny the rest and basically say it had a blackout period. And so to understand the history of Christianity, all of Christianity was united for the first 1,000 years. There was one church. It was East and West until around the time of the Great Schism. That's when the West, the modern-day Roman Catholic Church, their bishop, the Bishop of Rome, started claiming that he had universal jurisdiction. He added to the Nicene Creed the Filioque, which he had no authority to do. And prior ecumenical councils specifically forbid any additions to the creed. And they also were claiming that he had jurisdiction over the whole world. And he was justified in using documents like the Donation of Constantine, like the Samantian forgeries, the Pseudo-Adosian decretals. He's using these forgeries to prop up his supremacy, which is completely wrong. And he also all these other practices like switching to unleavened bread. But this caused the Great Schism in 1054 when East and West split. The modern day East, the Eastern Orthodox, that's what I am, and the modern day West, the Roman Catholic. Now, the Roman Catholic Church, the West, continued to innovate with created grace, with absolute divine simplicity, and with purgatory, and then they became abusive with indulgences, which caused Martin Luther to say, hey, you guys have been changing the true faith, and that caused the Protestant Reformation. This is a great book on the topic, Rock and Sand. This is written by an ex-Protestant, Josiah Trenman, talking about an Orthodox perspective on Protestantism. It's a very good book. He also has some lectures on YouTube. Again, that's Josiah Trenman, Patristic Nectar. Check him out. But Martin Luther comes along, and he makes an entirely new theology of sola scriptura. We just need the Bible, and that we're just saved by faith. No Christian taught this in the first 1,500 years. And he's also very anti-monastic. So Martin Luther, he saw the errors in the Catholic Church, but then instead of rejoining the East, the unchanged Christianity, he tries to make his own church. And now there's hundreds of different Protestant denominations. Some of them are closer to Orthodoxy than others. But all this is to say is the Protestants broke off of the Catholics, and the Catholics broke off of the Eastern Orthodox. If you want to know what the Eastern Orthodox believe, we believe in, obviously, the Jesus Christ, the Nicene Creed, the Trinity. We believe in the saints. We believe in the normative authority of the church, the ecumenical councils, the church fathers, the veneration of icons. We say recited prayers like our prayer book. We have a prayer rope where we just say the Jesus prayer, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. We have obviously our Bible. This is a really good Bible. The Orthodox Study Bible has very helpful footnotes if you actually want to understand the context, because Scripture cannot be read alone. It needs to be read in context with the church fathers and with tradition. We have the bishops. We have apostolic succession, meaning that the apostles were the first bishops, and our bishops have the same lineage from them. We worship liturgically, meaning that in the Old Testament, God didn't just want spontaneous worship. He wanted ordered worship with incense. He wanted something that would glorify God. And so Eastern Orthodoxy, we have a liturgy, we have a priesthood, we believe in all the sacraments, we have confession, real present in the Eucharist. It's not just a symbol. And yeah, that's basically the Eastern Orthodox beliefs. Did you have any questions about Eastern Orthodoxy? And then the last point I wanted to get on was about the young Earth creationism, or do you just want me to go on about that?
Well, yeah, you can do that, and then we can like have a long discussion about everything.
Okay.
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 Cool.
So lastly, when I was like first interested in Christianity, I'm like, what is this? Like they say the Earth is made in 7 days. Is that actually? There's so much evidence for evolution. It's just so much. But then I actually had to take a philosophy of science class where I had to actually pick a side, evolution or creationism. And I thought I believed in theistic evolution, but then the way I like to think of evolution is an evolution believer wants you, it's a circle, but they want you to stand really far away, because if you actually get close, you're going to see there's all these holes in evolution that they can't answer. And again, I know what evolution is. Evolution is natural selection via random mutation. It's completely random. It's just random mutations. I completely understand that. And I believe in microevolution, the adaptations of already existing species, the fine tuning of them. But it's a lot different from Darwin to say, oh, look at this finch's beak. It like changed slightly. Therefore, that can explain all of human life, all of life. No, it can't. How do you explain the origins of life? I mean, they literally come up with fairy tales like primordial soup, aliens. Aliens. Okay, how do you get life in the first place? How does DNA information come from nothing? It's a complete fantasy. It's an unfalsifiable position for macroevolution that entirely new kinds can evolve from nothing. This isn't anything new. It's literally the same thing as the ancient Hindu fairy tales. That's what the evolutionary believer believes in. Like they act, I'm so rational. Look I got my test tube. No, it isn't. You're not a monkey. It's just you're extrapolating on the data. And the other biggest flaw is that, okay, they say the Earth it's a billion, it's a trillion, it's 1,000 years old. Okay, how do they actually get that number? If you look into it for yourself, you can see that they use dating methods, light, radioactivity, carbon, and all of these principles have only been studied for 100 years. So to take 100 years of these principles behaving in a certain way and to extrapolate that they have always behaved that way for millions and billions of years can never be justified. It's an assumption. Either way, it's an assumption that it has or hasn't changed. And me, as a skeptic, is saying, I don't know. I'm saying we can look to other methods like history, and history says humanity is at least 6,000 to 10,000 years old. So I'm saying I don't know how old the Earth is, but I'm saying that the methods they use to date the Earth billions of years, anything above the justified point, they have a range of 100 years of data. To extrapolate it, anything more beyond that data is unjustified. It's an assumption. It's a belief. It's a blind belief. Okay, and they don't understand that. So I'm saying I don't know. I'm saying the world is at least 10,000 to 6,000 years old, because that's what the history says. You know, we can only speculate so much. We have to read about the story about what actually happened. And the story of humanity it's the same history as the Bible. There was a worldwide flood. Every culture has a flood story. Oh, there was an actual worldwide flood. There's an overwhelming amount of evidence for this in the Grand Canyon. In the Grand Canyon that cannot be explained, there are fish bones on the top of the Himalayas. How would that happen unless there was a worldwide flood? I've got a YouTube video coming on that soon. But there's also a great documentary called Is Genesis History? Very well made. I mean, these are the top geologists in the world: Steve Austin, Kurt Wise. The very, very good work. I'm going to do some more videos on those. But and then the other thing is that macroevolution, again, we've never seen a fish turn into a monkey. They're like, no, it takes billions of years. Okay, you haven't proven that there's been billions of years. It's just speculation. They have never proven it. It's just their belief. It's a belief. It's a blind belief. It's not rational. And so I say you're a creationist just like me, because you believe the world was created. You believe in the Big Bang, creation ex nihilo. So you're a creationist. All I'm saying is we don't know how old the Earth is. I'm just saying humans have probably existed in their closer to their current form, because I don't want to extrapolate and speculate on the data. And there's also the geopolitical interest, because Charles Darwin was not just some neutral fact seeker. He was an agent of the British Empire, and he just happened to come up with a mythology that perfectly fit. Oh, the Anglo-Saxon British man evolved on top. That's completely wrong. And Darwinism, what were the effects after? What did we see in Europe after Darwinism? We see the rise of Nazism. We see social We see social Darwinism, survival of the fittest, eugenics, scientific racism. We're just a monkey. If we're just a monkey, there's no inherent value to human life. It is anti-human. It is an ideology that is propped up by the elites to demoralize the population, to say that you're just a monkey and there's no value on human life. And this eugenics mindset is still so present in our society with abortion and sterilization. We live in the elite are very anti-human, and this is their ideology. I encourage you to look into Darwinism for yourself. Watch my video, Evolution is Fake, because it's not only that, but the fossil record is full of fraud. Look them up for yourself. Piltdown Man, Nebraska Man, Ernest Hagel's fraudulent embryo drawings, still in biology textbooks today. They don't care about the truth. They have certain presuppositions, so they interpret everything within their paradigm, and they are committed. They say, no, it has to be true. It has to be true. It's okay to fake the drawings because we believe it's true. And there's also the mathematical critique of evolution, meaning that the mathematical impossibility of evolution disproves it alone. Look up the Hoover Institute. But overall, that's why atheism doesn't work. That's why Eastern Orthodoxy is the answer. We need an orthodox approach on everything. All the church fathers taught that there was a worldwide flood, and that young Earth creationism, that the Earth is not, it's not 1 trillion years old, and we didn't come from monkeys. We were made in the image of God, and that's what the science says too. So, yeah, that's my spiel.
Awesome. Well, we've got a very triggered audience here. They're kind of freaking out about this because they don't like their, fantasy world trampled on. Sorry to say, guys,
Yeah,
but you've got to wake up and
they need to grow up and stop believing in fairy tales. I mean, it's like it's like Santa Claus and Tooth Fairy. Like, yeah, we didn't come from monkeys. It's just the lie your parent says. That's what my parents are both biology majors. We've had plenty of conversations about this.
Oh, really? What do your parents say about this? And so, wait, first, are your parents Christian? What are they?
No. I've tried to get them go to church. It's weird because it's the opposite dynamic. Normally, it's the parent trying to get the kid to go to church and believe in young Earth creationism. I'm trying to get my parents to go to church. I'm trying them to believe in young Earth creationism. So I've got them to go to church, and they're a little bit more open to God, but they're just like, oh, I'm a good person. I don't need God. And they don't really take it that seriously, but they're open to hearing my ideas and my critiques of evolution. So it's definitely led to some very interesting conversations.
Okay, so your parents, what are their perspectives? You said they're in biology.
Yeah, their bachelors were in biology, but they don't do anything in biology now, but they did. That's what they majored in college.
So what do they think of these critiques that you're making?
They think, I mean, I don't know. They're like, oh, that makes sense. I mean, they think some of it makes sense, but they just think, I don't know. They're kind of hard-headed and stubborn, and they're just like, well, that's what I learned in school, that we came from monkeys. So they haven't really offered anything compelling. They have I don't know. Yeah, they don't really have any strong beliefs about anything. So it's just, we've just been having conversations about it. But they don't really feel strongly about it either way.
Okay, well, Jason Torn says, debate me on YEC. Jason, I sent you an email because I've reached out to 2 young Earth creation geologists and they don't want to come on, but they agreed to help me respond to you. So I would love to have you on to talk about young Earth creation and specifically related to geology, since that's your area of specialty. So I did send you an email. I haven't heard back from you, but I would really love to do that. So please do send me. And I don't know, Kyle, are you interested in debating Jason Torn? He has a PhD in geology or climatology or something like that.
Maybe. I mean, my specialty is not in geology. That's why I refer to Stephen Austin and Kurt Weiss, because they are the experts on geology. I'm more focused on the philosophical critiques of evolution, and I bring up what the people who have done the research, Ken Ham, Answers in Genesis, those people. So I don't know if I'm qualified to debate, since you obviously have more qualifications, but I would be interested in having a discussion because, it depends what specific topic you want to debate about young Earth creationism. Like if you want to specifically debate the geology, I like to take it like a holistic perspective because of all these huge flaws, which cause major doubt. Like I call myself an evolutionary agnostic. I don't know. I'm very skeptical of it.
Okay, yeah. And I'm also not, I wouldn't say I'm qualified to like, I mean, I certainly don't know as much about geology as Jason does, but I'm happy to have the discussion and hear his perspective. Now, so James says evolution is an atheist plot to hide God, which 90% of all theists are complicit in. I don't think 90% of theists believe in evolution. But even if they do, that doesn't mean it's correct. Anyway,
Exactly.
Kyle, do you want to respond to that?
Well, I don't know. I think people just get caught up in their worldview. And I think the problem with modern day science is that it has become very institutionalized, and people's ego and pride and money has got caught up with what the science is. Because the science is really just determined by these large institutions which have their interest in money. And it's a very corrupt, and it's very skeptical. It's not the science of like centuries ago where it's all about the truth. They want to be proven wrong. No, people have their egos and pride. And why would they let the creationists debunk their grandest fairy tale? If people actually believe we disprove their biggest dogma, it would discredit their whole system. They're not going to let that happen. And the thing is that it's an unfalsifiable position. You can't really falsify it. So they do prop it up, and they use it to discredit Christians, because it's like, oh my gosh, you don't believe in evolution. They make us seem dumb, but they're the ones who believe in a Hindu fairy tale. And
okay, why do you call it a Hindu fairy tale?
well, because it's basically the ancient Hindu myths. I mean, the ancient Hindus thought, oh, we're just like a rock, and then the rock reincarnated as a fish, and then to a monkey. And I mean, the British Empire was all over India, and they basically adapted this neo-Hindu mythology because they thought it would be useful. I mean, what are the two most important dogmas of Hinduism? It's one, reincarnation, evolution, we're constantly changing, evolving. And then number two is the caste system. And so the British elite, this is what they wanted. They wanted, oh, you evolved on bottom. You are at the bottom of the caste system. I mean, that's basically what is kind of emerging in our society, is that neo-Hindu thought propped up by the British Empire. It's been kind of assimilated, but now this is kind of the ideology of the ruling class. I mean, they say exactly what they're going to do. You can read Klaus Schwab and talking about the fourth industrial revolution, evolving past man, transhumanism, all this stuff. It is the ideology of the elite, and they want to use it to control the world.
Yeah, and by the way, guys, I saved a lot of your questions in the chat, so we'll go backwards through them because we'll finish up talking about the young earth creation stuff, and then we'll kind of go back to the earlier things. So yeah, let's see if anybody has been adding any more questions. Okay, I'm going to go back to these questions. So Brian Stevens says, would Kyle be interested in talking to a physicist on how we estimate the age of the universe?
I know how they estimate the age of the Earth. I've looked on it. I've looked at it. They can use lots of different methods. I've had so many conversations on my videos because I get hundreds of comments of people commenting this exact same thing. They talk about light, the speed of light. They talk about radioactivity. They talk about carbon. But the thing is, no matter what method you're using, these have only been studied for around 100 years. So you're taking 100 years of these phenomenon behaving in a certain way and extrapolating that way past the justified point, even to justify it. Oh, it's been the way this 1,000 years. Either way, it's an assumption. It's a blind assumption. It doesn't matter what method you use, because every method is relatively new. It hasn't been studied for that long, and you're extrapolating that this principle has always behaved in that way. So, I mean, you can send me videos, or I mean, I'm interested in learning, but again, the point is that they're extrapolating data beyond the justified point.
Well, and I would like to ask the audience, what would it take for your idea about the age of the universe to be overturned? Because if you've been following the James Webb Telescope stuff that's been coming out, if you look at what they found when they looked at the galaxies, the images that that we receive from the galaxies, first of all, this is totally blowing up the Big Bang predictions. Like, there's galaxies where they shouldn't be. There shouldn't be nearly as many galaxies. They shouldn't be developed, like fully developed as they are. And and not only that, but there's like galaxies that the way that we calculate the age of the galaxies, the presence of those galaxies, their age is actually should be older than the Big Bang. So can something be older than the Big Bang? If we know that the Big Bang happened 14 billion years ago, then can something be older than that? Because if we're following the Big Bang predictions, those galaxies are older than the Big Bang. So just go check it out, guys. This is like your theory, your ideas about the age of the universe are in major crisis. Okay.
I think that's a great point. Like, what would it take? What would need to be, we need to show to be the case to show that, okay, maybe it isn't as old as we thought. And I think that's interesting because, like, I think it's fine to speculate, but to like rest our entire civilization on this belief that like scientists have been wrong and believe such stupid stuff. Like, they used to think, oh, drinking mercury is good. Smoking cigarettes is good for you. They used to believe in static universe. And it's like, why would I trust that when I could trust this has a much better track record than anyone just, oh, I have my lab coat, follow me. I mean, this has a much better track record. Why am I going to put my faith in fallen men? All these people, they lie to us constantly. Why would I trust their most important dogma? It's fine to speculate, but I'm not going to rest everything on what some scientist says.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, that's part of my husband's testimony of how he came to know the Lord. Is it actually started with him realizing that all these things that were proclaimed as absolute truth in cosmology, because he was really into astronomy. And so, but he eventually realized that, every article that would come out would be like, all of these things are in question. Like, everything was changing from week to week. But when they were making the claims, it was like being stated as absolute truth and then getting overturned later. And so, the Big Bang has so many failed predictions that it should have been overturned. It should have been discarded when the Hubble Space Telescope information started coming back to Earth. But no, we had to hold on to it. So we accommodated. They made they switched up the model. That now there's like all these hypothetical entities that we have to believe in to support the Big Bang. So if you believe in the if you believe in the Big Bang right now, you have to believe in invisible entities. What's the difference in that than believing in God? So you're going to believe in dark matter. You're going to believe in dark energy, even though we have not a shred of observable evidence for these things. Don't be gullible. Don't be naive. Don't believe stuff just because stuff people tell you. So
speaking about, I have a video coming about the dark energies in the future. But NASA is already teaching it. The dark energies are dogma. But how did they come up with the dark energies? They had a model. Their model didn't line up to the world, so they had to literally invent the dark energies to make their model work. But then new studies are showing actually they had a wrong assumption, and that assumption caused them to have a flaw in the model, which made them have to invent the dark energies. So the dark energies may not even exist. It was all because they had something wrong in the model. So like, why? It's the problem is not science. The problem is teaching science as like dogma, the newest science. Oh, it's dogma. Don't be a science denier. It's like, okay, we need humility. We can't just constantly just force the most trendy thing on the entire population. I recommend reading Jay Weil. He is a very good, he's just a scientist who is a Christian, but he has a very good blog talking about the dark energies, talking about creationism. He writes a lot of creationist books for homeschooling for kids, but definitely check out Jay Weil's blog.
Cool. So anyway, I kind of lost track of the chat for a minute, so I don't know what they're saying, but maybe we can, just say, Brian Stevens says starlight problem is a huge problem for YEC. Do you have anything to say about that, Kyle?
Well, I mean, again, you're just extrapolating and thinking, oh, it has always functioned this way. Therefore, the Earth has to be the certain age. And like Rebecca just brought up, there's universes that are older than the Big Bang. So again, there's obviously, we can't just put our faith, galaxies, we're not just going to put our faith in these systems because there are such big flaws in them. And so again, it's just extrapolating the data is not responsible science.
And so Brokai's response to our talk about the fantasy world is, yet they have a literal fairy tale of a dirt man and a rib woman who got kicked out of a garden from eating fruit that a talking snake told them to eat. Projection much?
No, because you finding that hard to believe has nothing to do with the true or falsity of Christianity. You believe in something even more ridiculous. You believe the world randomly popped into existence and then the planets randomly came together and then life, oh yeah, DNA, it just randomly came from nothing. And then the fish to the monkey, oh yeah, this was all just complete random. That's a made up fairy tale, nothing guiding this. I'm the one, again, that has nothing to do with the true or falsity of Christianity. Your personal incredulity has nothing to do with the true or falsity. I would much rather believe that than, oh yeah, the universe, it just popped into existence. Why? Why is there a universe? We don't know. It's all just random. Yeah, don't act like, oh, we're so much more logical. You're the one who believes in a fairy tale. That's much more realistic than the Darwinist fairy tale.
Yeah, and the difference between what we believe and what evolutionists believe is that we admit that ours is a story that we believe. And the difference between that and evolution is that evolution is being promoted as if it's a scientific fact. And a lot of people have totally swallowed that. And I understand, because most people don't have time to really think about these things. Like, they're just, they take what people believe.
They're educated by the TV and movies, and that's what the TV and movies and the teacher says. Most people don't actually question their assumptions about the universe. Do I believe what I believe? Is it justified? Is it actually true? Most people aren't interested in it, and all of us are blinded by pride. Even myself. Like, I've been wrong many times, and it just takes, like, you need to look into it for yourself. You need to see what they're actually claiming. I've got a video coming in a few weeks called Creationist Debunks Bill Nye, where I respond to Bill Nye, because he literally in this video, it's Ken Ham and Bill Nye at the Ark, and Ken Ham is like totally destroying Bill Nye. And Bill Nye is literally just like, he's like short-circuiting. He can't answer these basic questions. He's talking about how he doesn't have any beliefs, but we can't prove evolution, but it's not a belief because it's supported by evidence. It's showing that scientism is just, our society has been hijacked by scientism fundamentalists who don't really care about the truth. It's all about will to power, where they want to promote their ideology, their interpretation of science. Again, it is their interpretation. Science, there's not anything as a brute fact. Everything in the world requires interpretation. We interpret it within our paradigm. Me and an atheist can see the exact same thing, but come away with different conclusions. That's why we need to have critiques at the paradigm level. And atheism cannot account for anything that it assumes. It is an absurd worldview. It is philosophical suicide.
Yeah, so Spartan Theology says, I don't give a crap about evolution. I'm annoyed because he's acting like a jerk, and this is not at all how someone should share the gospel. Ethan, I just want to respond to this and say, you know what? I don't feel like Kyle's being a jerk here. I feel like he's just strongly coming against bad ideas. And I don't think it's like personal against anyone. And if anyone is offended by the way Kyle is talking on this channel, check yourself, guys, because this channel is full of people, saying all kinds of stuff in, often rude ways. So, I don't have a problem with the way that Kyle is talking about these things.
People are just way too sensitive. I'm just poking fun at them. They call my stuff a fairy tale. I'm just saying, I'm not saying it to be mean. I'm just like, why can't we just have fun and like poke fun at each other? Like, we don't have to be, just don't say anything like offensive. Just like, no, we can say stuff. We can have fun. We can like play around with each other. Like, I don't like this hypersensitivity. I'm not being a jerk. If you know me, I'm a nice person. I genuinely want what's best for people. In atheism, atheism, what's the root of atheism? At least nihilism. It's an empty, meaningless universe. That's a jerk. That's a sad way to think. And like,
thank you. You know what? I tell my atheist audience, if I was an atheist, I would be a nihilist. I don't think
exactly.
you can make an argument for any way other than that. Like,
no, yeah, I was an atheist for 19 years, well, maybe even 20 years. I was an atheist, and it is a sad, depressing way to live. I was a slave to the world and to sin. I was never a happy person. I was stuck on the hedonic treadmill. We are constantly just addicted to these hedonistic pleasures. The only thing that got me away from that was Jesus Christ. That is the only thing. And so these people saying that everyone's life is meaningless, we're just a monkey. No, you're the jerk. You're lying to everyone. You're lying to kids. You're selling them a lie from the devil that is going to make them unsatisfied. How am I the jerk? Because I'm just poking fun at the atheists. Atheists are militant. They have taken over our society. How am I being a jerk? I'm just being honest. It's not me. Maybe you're just too sensitive. Look, I'm all about being nice, but we can poke fun at each other. We can have fun. That's
okay. Now, how would you have thought when you were an atheist? So, like, what were you thinking as an atheist?
Oh, so basically, I wasn't raised with any religion. My friend's dad was an atheist, so my friend was an atheist. He showed me Bill Maher, religiousness. And I used to watch The Amazing Atheist on YouTube, which is basically this very polemical atheist. And I also watched a lot of Family Guy. So it just, all this stuff that just poked atheism. Oh, they just believe in a sky daddy. But then as I matured and I grew up and I saw that atheism, it doesn't lead to a good society. And then now that I'm studying philosophy, they can never be epistemically justified. It's a complete, like I said, it's philosophical suicide. But I saw that atheism led to nihilism. I tried to rationalize to myself, nothing matters. It's okay. But it's just such a sad, depressing way to view the world. I mean, why? I mean, you wonder why the suicide rate is so high. It's because young kids, Gen Z, are sold a lie that their life is meaningless. You're just a worker, a consumer. You just have to maximize pleasure. You end up being a slave to sin. It's a sad, empty, meaningless universe. It's awful. And how does atheism not lead to that? There's no reason to do anything because it is a denial of the necessary precondition for ethics.
Cool. Okay. I'm sorry. People have so much to say to you. I'm just trying to keep track of all these questions and comments. But let's okay. So Dave wants to know, how old were you when you were an atheist? What age?
Oh, I was an atheist until I was 19 years old.
Okay, cool. And Brian Stephen wants to know, do you have any videos from your atheist days?
No, that would have been funny. That would have been funny if I had some responding to myself, but no, I wish I did. It would have been interesting to see the arguments that I would have made, because now on my channel, I'm focusing on responding to every single atheist on YouTube. That's my ultimate goal, is to respond to every single atheist video. And the thing is that most of the time they literally do not even make an argument. And most of their arguments are like, well, if God is real, how bad thing happened? Okay, well, there's no bad or good on your system. Christianity is a worldview that can give an account for good, for evil, for the problem of evil. Just read the story of Job.
Cool. Now, when you were an atheist and you were watching Bill Maher and, other atheists, if you had seen a video of yours, now, as you are now, from someone like you,
yeah.
What would have been your reaction?
I think that all the time. And I think I honestly would have just probably rejected what I was saying as a Christian, because I think the problem it's not a logical problem it's not a lack of facts and evidence, because again, I went over the logical problems in atheism, the Izot problem, the transcendental argument of God. There are perfectly logical arguments for the existence of the revealed God. It's really a problem in the heart. I just wasn't open to God at that point. It kind of just takes, you need to be open. And there's all these people plant these little seeds in your head about like the Holy Spirit and stuff. And I think eventually it just takes time. It takes, like, you can lead a horse to water. Like I could have watched all my videos when I was a young atheist. I don't think it would have made a difference, because it's just, we're all hard-headed. We're stubborn. We're stuck in our paradigm. We interpret everything within our paradigm. We have a certain set of web of beliefs, and it just takes time. These beliefs need to settle in. And so, yeah, I think it's mainly a spiritual problem, and like, you need to be open to God.
No, so how did that crack happen? How did you start to make a shift? Like, what was there a certain event that caused you to kind of like?
There wasn't a certain event, but I would say I was getting really interested in politics, and I would say it just felt like everything that we were saying, like everything in the world was just like a lie. And that's kind of like the biggest like message of Christianity, is like, the world is a lie. This world hates truth. This world hates the good. And seeing everything promoted, I think seeing that there's evil in the world, because on atheism, there is no evil. There is no good. There's nothing. There's only what is. There is no good. There is no evil. But then seeing certain things in the world, and I'm like, no. That's not just like wrong. That's like objectively wrong. And there has to be good. And I kind of had this like, I was looking around, and I always had good experience with Christians, because Christians are wholesome, good people. They don't cuss. It's not about drug use and promiscuous sex and abortion and all these like sins and evils of the world. It's really wholesome. Christians want what's actually best for you. And it's like, Christians live happier lives. You can look at all the studies. We vote more. We have more kids. We are more involved in the community. Like, we live more fulfilling lives. So even if atheism was true, there's no point to being an atheist, because it only leads to nihilism. You can just think of Pascal's wager. If an atheist is right, nothing mattered anyway. If a Christian is right, everything mattered. And if I'm wrong, it didn't matter anyway.
Yeah, I like that. Now, James says it's not okay to stereotype non-Christians and non-theists as all a bunch of depressed nihilists. Well, James, you may not consider yourself a nihilist. I'm not saying you're a nihilist, but I think what me and Kyle are saying is that you should be, because that would be the rational conclusion to your worldview.
Yeah. That's the whole point. No, I don't think every atheist is a nihilist. Atheists can be nice people. I've met plenty of nice atheists, but I am talking on an epistemic level. You can never be justified. There's no reason to believe in anything in atheism. And like, I've met plenty of atheists that are good people. But the problem is that when you look at like generalizations on ideologies of populations as a whole, it does. If you're a consistent atheist, it does lead to nihilism. That's what I was when I was an atheist. I tried to be a consistent atheism, and it led me to nihilism. Because think, if you're an atheist, what's the meaning? There's no point. There's no point in doing anything. What's the point of even waking up? It's all meaningless. There's no ethics. There is a problem. Again, I'm not saying that there are plenty of atheists who are nice people, but they aren't consistent. That is the point. Is I am calling the atheists to consistency by questioning their presuppositions.
Okay. Now, let me see. This was a comment somebody made. Uber says, debate quote, what would make you change your mind? Nye, a rabbit fossil where it should not be. Ken Ham, nothing. Now, so he's pointing out the debate that was between Bill Nye and Ken Ham. And I think Ken Ham did terrible in that debate. I was very disappointed with him, because all he was doing was preaching, and it was supposed to be a scientific debate. Did you see that?
No, I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that yet, but I watched the follow-up where Bill Nye goes to the Evolution Museum, the Ark. And I'm going to say Ken Ham totally destroyed Bill Nye in the second half. I didn't see the actual debate, but the follow-up where Bill Nye comes to the Ark, Ken Ham totally destroys Bill Nye, but I need to watch that debate.
Okay. Spartan Theology says, what does Kyle think of DBH, the greatest EO around? I have no idea what those acronyms mean. Do you know what he's talking about?
DBH? Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Okay. So Spartan, if you're there, let us know. Although I'm not paying that much attention to the chat right now, because I'm trying to get the previous comments answered. Okay, so I think we've kind of hit it on the evolution
Earth,
stuff,
yeah.
young Earth. And so here's just a question from Jason Torn. Could Kyle be wrong about his revelatory belief in God? Is he 100% certain? Is it logically impossible that he is wrong in his revelatory position?
It's possible everyone is wrong. It's possible. I mean, there's not really any point because there's a possibility everyone is wrong. What Christianity does is it gives us a worldview, a paradigm that can account for everything that is assumed in the universe. It's the only way to be epistemically justified. If you want to actually see the best argument for God, check out Jay Dyer, check out Father Deacon Ananias. They go over Russ Mannion and his argument on the transcendental argument for God. Of course, no one can be 100% certain, but I am more certain we need to operate on some level of assumptions. Everyone operates on assumptions. I just have a paradigm that can account for everything that I'm assuming. Atheism cannot.
Okay, question from Brian Stevens. Kyle's thoughts on God wanting people to kill people for him in war and for sacrifice.
What are you referring to? I mean, God is perfectly good, and you as an atheist saying God wants to kill people in war. Okay, on atheism, why is any of that bad? God is ultimately good. God is goodness itself. If God wills something, it is by its very nature good, and we may not understand it in our finite human limitations, but sometimes there are justified acts, and we trust in God. Again, you can read the story of Job. The story of Job is all about basically we can't know God's full providence. But the problem with atheism is there's nothing wrong with any of that. There's nothing wrong. But I don't know the exact example you're talking about. But again, God is goodness itself. There is no goodness on atheism. There is no bad.
Okay, so Brian Stevens also wants to know, okay, I guess he's quoting you, they are saints and we know they're in heaven. And he wanted to know, how do you know that?
Because that's what the church teaches.
Cool. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about so you were talking about Orthodox Christianity being like the true church. So
Yeah.
do you see me as not a Christian?
No, I say you're a Christian, but to be really be fully I'm not interested in saying who isn't and isn't a Christian. I'm not interested in saying who isn't and isn't going to heaven. That's not for me. That's for God. I'm saying that Christ established a visible church that is the Orthodox Church, and we all need to join the body of Christ, especially if we have knowledge of it.
Okay. So and what makes you think that? Can you talk about some of the things that caused you to specifically head to Orthodox Christianity?
Yeah, well, my specific issue is in the Western paradigm, it's Protestantism versus Catholicism. For me, that was an easy choice because Catholicism was a lot more traditional. They had bishops, they had apostolic succession. Like I said, Protestantism was only invented 1,500 years ago. So Catholicism, I thought that was the true church because they had been established by the apostles and they had the sacraments. They had the authority because that's where, like I said, the ecumenical councils, the 7 ecumenical councils, and the normative authority of the church to give us a canon of scripture. But then after being in the Catholic world, and I got really into traditional Catholicism, because basically in the 1960s, the Catholic Church literally watered down and reversed all of their teachings. They made their liturgy, their basically Sunday worship, they made it very Protestant. They watered down and reversed all their teachings, which basically vindicates orthodoxy. And that led me down the route of, okay, is Catholicism the true church? Because they had basically defected and reversed all their teachings. So that got me to study church history more. And I saw that the innovations in the West had happened long before 1960s and Vatican II. It had actually happened long before the West, the Roman Catholic Church, added to the creed, the Filioque, this doctrine of papal supremacy. That's not, no one taught that. So orthodoxy is basically, if you want to see what ancient Christianity is like, go to a divine liturgy. And I recommend if you're an atheist, Protestant, Catholic, whatever you are, search up Orthodoxy in America, try out a divine liturgy. If you want to worship in how the early Christians did, this is where you're going to get it. We use incense. It's like being an early Christian because we are unchanged ancient Christianity.
Cool. And Humble Thinker says, and he doesn't know what EO is, and he's supposed to be EO. Okay, so I guess EO stood for Eastern Orthodox. We had no context for what that was about.
No.
I thought it might be about
I know what
like something related to evolution.
Yeah,
So
I know what Eastern Orthodox EO is. I didn't know what the DBH meant.
Okay, so this is Brian Stevens asking about you mentioned that Jesus fulfills all the messianic prophecies. So how do we know this?
Well, we can read the Torah, the Old Testament. There's all these messianic prophecies in Isaiah that they would all worship. The Gentiles would convert, that Jesus would be born, he would be a Nazarene, he'd be of the line of David, he would be born of a virgin. All these very, very specific. There's actually 451 prophecies in the Old Testament that literally predict Jesus exactly. So, and these are written hundreds of years before Jesus. And so all these prophecies, Judaism is fulfilled in Christianity. You can read, just search up 400 prophecies, messianic prophecies about Jesus. There's also a website called, I made a video, got a video coming out about Judaism, but there's a website called Jews for Jesus, where it goes over all the specific messianic prophecies that are fulfilled by Jesus, that can only be fulfilled by Jesus. So yeah, Jesus is unquestionably the fulfillment of the law.
Now, Captive Desk, Dave says, Rebecca loves it when theists insult non-believers, but has a major moo when it's reversed. Dave, how in the world is that true? I let people say all kinds of stuff and I don't get mad about it. And so I really don't see how you're justifying that comment.
Yeah, I was about to say, you're like super nice. Like, I don't see any, like, I don't see a bad bone in your body to say that she's being so insulting. She's just poking fun. That's the problem, is people think that you poke fun at people and, oh my gosh, you're insulting. It's like, we're just joking around. We're being charitable. You can have fun.
Okay, Jason Torn says, what evidence it's objective? All you are doing is saying what atheists supposedly think. I'm not sure what this was in reference to. Do you know what he's referring to?
I don't know. He's probably just talking about the fact that I'm generalizing atheists to disprove it. Like, I can't talk about every single atheist. I'm just talking about atheists in general. If you have a specific problem, you can comment on one of my YouTube videos if I miss something. I'm open to hearing different ideas. I love having a dialogue. That's why I like this channel, because we have people on the dialogue. I'm confident in my beliefs. But when I'm talking about atheists in general, I do make some generalizations. If you have a specific strand of atheism that you want to defend, you can comment on one of my YouTube videos and I'll respond to you gladly.
Cool. Excuse me, but says, why is nihilism bad?
Why is nihilism bad? Well, on atheism, on nihilism, there is no good or bad. There's only what is. But on Christianity, nihilism is bad because it is a denial of creation, of the good, of the bad, saying it's all meaningless. That you see a universe that is created and saying no, it wasn't created. It was just completely random. Nothing matters. Well, there is no, it's wrong on Christianity. On nihilism, there is no good or bad. I mean, why would you want to promote nihilism? It's philosophical suicide. It made me a depressed person. And you're wondering why Gen Z is so lonely and depressed. It's because they don't have a church community. It's because they're sold a lie that their life is meaningless. That's why nihilism is bad, because it's anti-Christian. It's anti-truth. I mean, you're saying, why is nihilism bad? Well, then the sentence you just said is meaningless on nihilism. It's a completely self-refuting position.
Cool. Okay. Let's see. So Jesus, okay, Spartan Theology is asking, so Jesus isn't why he became a Christian. Do you want to elaborate more on your story?
No, Jesus is what made me become a Christian, because Jesus is the perfect person. He is the role model for every single person to live by. He was the greatest person to ever exist. Even the atheist admits this, that he was the most moral person. Everyone looks up to Jesus because he is the model. He is the perfect. If everyone was like Jesus, the world would be a utopia. It would be heaven. And so that's why I'm a Christian, because I'm a follower of Jesus. I believe he was He is God. His teachings civilize the world. If we didn't have Christ, it would be paganism and barbarianism. And that's what we're returning back to because we have rejected Christ. Christ is not optional. You need Jesus Christ in your life. And we all need to pray to Jesus. We all need to model our life after Jesus and ask, what would Jesus do? I think Jesus is the greatest person to ever exist.
Cool. Now, this is a good, excuse me, but says, convince me that theism is less arbitrary and I will be a theist. Do you have a response you want to make to that?
That it's less arbitrary. Okay, well, on atheism, how do you explain the things that you're assuming? Logic, metaphysics, the uniformity of nature. Again, this is a completely random universe. You made a sentence which kind of presupposes there is some objective meaning. How do you give an account for that objective meaning? You just said, convince me that atheism is less arbitrary. Okay, so there has to be necessary preconditions for the possibility of you making a sentence like that. There has to be objective meaning in the universe. How would I actually understand what you're saying unless there is some objective criteria? And again, this objective criteria isn't just in my head. It's not just in your head. It exists outside. It exists in the divine mind, God, and it has to be personal so we have access to it. And we know God because he revealed himself. Jesus Christ, he revealed himself in history. That's why you, not just a theist, I'm not arguing for generic theism. I'm arguing for Orthodox Christianity. There isn't a generic God. There is only the real God who revealed himself. And I'm saying the necessary preconditions for you to make a sentence like that presuppose so many things about the universe.
Cool. Okay, so okay, Brian Stevens I guess he didn't hear the beginning that you are Orthodox. But he wants to know, like, specifically what convinced you that Orthodox is the right path. Like,
so what convinced me of convinced me of Catholicism, or should I say why was Catholicism?
Yeah, I think he thought at first that you were Catholic. Maybe he didn't hear the beginning. So
I'll say why I became Catholic and then why I became an Orthodox. So I became Catholic in the first place because, again, I was thought it was just Protestant Christianity versus Catholic Christianity. And I saw that Protestantism, it's a relatively new thing. Its theology was only invented 500 years ago. And so the Catholic Church, there was a specific verse. Again, it said, Peter is the rock of the church. And so to me, that was like the bishops, they have the normative authority. And I didn't really like the way I just didn't like the way the Protestants worshiped. It was I didn't like the rock band. So I just started going to a Catholic church. And I mean, their liturgy is very modernist too. But then after becoming Catholic, they're very structured. I went to their RCIA. I got a pretty good catechism learning about, the real presence, about the bishops, about the priesthood and everything. But then as I got more and more into traditional Catholicism, I started going to the Latin Mass, a more reverent form of liturgy. And I see that in the 1960s, the Catholic Church reversed all their teachings. I have an entire presentation called Why I Left Catholicism for Orthodoxy. But basically, Orthodoxy is unchanged ancient Christianity, and Catholicism and Protestantism are both innovations on the true faith.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Okay. I was confused by Brian Stevens' comment. Yeah, he was. Okay. Sorry if I added to the confusion there, but okay. Brian Stevens also says, I agree with Kyle about living below your means. People get $1 and spend $1. I try to live debt-free and save money for the future. Few people do this.
Exactly. This is the key to success, is not embracing instant gratification. We need to look further. All of life's success is looking forward, is stop spending money, invest your money, wait time. Like, stop spending your money, get a Roth IRA, invest all your money. And then if you wait 40 years, you're going to see amazing results. Everything worth doing is not instant gratification. It's delayed gratification. And that's when I think of Christianity. It is the ultimate delay of gratification. We can't live for the day. We need to look forward. We can't just be consumed by our phone and by our stuff. We should declutter our room. We should declutter our life. We should declutter our phone. We should declutter everything, because stuff isn't going to make us happy. It's not. It's a hedonic treadmill. It will never bring us actual eudaimonic happiness. It will just bring us that temporary, fleeting pleasure. It will make us a slave to sin. So if instead we just focus on living a simple life, of putting our happiness in people and experiences and God, we're going to not only achieve a greater level of happiness, but we're going to be able to achieve financial freedom, because instead of spending all this money just to like make us feel the dopamine go in our head, we can just live below our means, be happy. The richest man is not who has the most, but needs the least. So need the absolute least, depend on God, depend on your friends and family, on things that bring us actual happiness. That is the essence of Christian simplicity.
Cool. I like your passion. So, okay, let's see. What else did you talk about at the beginning that I kind of wanted to explore? Oh, I wrote it down. Can you talk about you said that the Orthodox Church is the one who understands like the essence energies distinction. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so basically, I think it was the Second Ecumenical Council, when they're getting the doctrine of the Trinity, the Cappadocian Fathers, their model of the Trinity, the Cappadocian model of the Trinity, was the one ratified at the Ecumenical Council. This is where we get our Trinitarian metaphysics. And it can only make sense if there are real distinctions in God. And the problem with absolute divine simplicity, which is the route that the West goes later, is that it ends up basically identifying the will of God with the essence in a strict identity. It's very complex to understand. If you want to understand David Bradshaw, he's a Orthodox, basically theologian. He's written many books on the essence energies distinction. You need some prior knowledge about Greek philosophy, about what essence is, and he has a good book on it called Aristotle, East and West. And basically, the West went down the route of focusing too much on Aristotelian metaphysics, and the East stayed true to what was taught at the Second Ecumenical Council. And our pillars of orthodoxy, like my chrismation saint Gregory Palamas, again reiterated the essence energies distinction. But it's essential to knowing God. If you want to understand it, I definitely recommend checking out someone more qualified like David Bradshaw, Jay Dyer, Father Deacon Ananias at Patristic Faith. But I think it's very hard to understand. So I think it's easier to understand the historical context of why Orthodoxy is the unchanged church.
Cool. Okay. Did you have any further things that you wanted to discuss?
I wanted to say thanks for having me on, and thank you. I know you're a proponent of young Earth creationism, so people don't like us. They're mean to us. So I thank you for sticking up for the truth, because I mean this world hates the truth. But I just wanted to ask, how you're a Protestant, right? Would you be open to ever trying out a divine liturgy just to see what it's like?
Oh, I've been to the Orthodox Church quite a few times. I've been
really?
to Mass, a Catholic Mass, a lot of times. Like I love going to any
Just
Christian church. So I've kind
yeah.
of like visited lots of different traditions, and I think there's value in all of them. And so I enjoy the tradition, but I guess I don't see a good reason to like convert to Eastern Orthodoxy.
Hmm. Well, I would say that, I mean, the Protestants have really changed. I mean, what branch are you? Are you just like a non-denominational?
Yeah, I'm just
Oh,
a normal Christian. I don't really like I prefer not to have a label other than just Christian, but if you want kind of like a breakdown of like what am I? I'm a theological mutt. I don't really fit in anywhere. I'm a crazy charismatic, but I don't agree
oh,
with all charismatic theology, but I'm charismatic in practice. And I'm also kind of came from a Baptist upbringing, so I have a lot of Baptist ideas. And then but like I'm also kind of like I wouldn't say I'm a progressive Christian. I'm an evangelical Christian, but I'm a little bit too liberal for like most uh you know conservative Christian tastes.
yeah.
So nobody likes me. I can get basically if I speak up in any Christian church about some issues, then I'm gonna get in trouble.
Okay, interesting. All I'd say is I recommend reading. It's a very easy to read book. Rock and Sand, Josiah Tremin. He also has some lectures on YouTube. But this book is amazing. But yeah, I think you should definitely, if you have any questions about Orthodoxy, feel free to ask me. I mean, we're like more conservative than conservatives. We're Orthodox, but yeah.
Well, here's a good question. Does Kyle believe in eternal conscious torment?
So your experience of God is going to depend on how you love God. If you love the good, if you love Jesus Christ, if you're a part of his church, if you love the liturgy, well, then heaven is going to be a lot like that. So you're going to love it. God's love is going to feel amazing on you. But if you've rejected God and you're like, no, I don't like you. God, you're mean. I want to follow myself. Well, it's the same love. It's just going to feel painful. It's like someone who loves you, them loving you back, it's going to feel awesome. But if you rejected God's love, then he's like a creepy stalker, like, God, leave me alone. And it's going to feel painful. So it's not so much that like God wants to torture you, evil little sinner. He just wants to, it's just his same love is going to be painful. Your experience of the eschaton is going to be based on your mode of willing. Did you love God? Did you love the good? If you love God, heaven's going to feel great, the afterlife. But if you have rejected God, then that same love, it's gonna feel like a sunburn. It's not gonna feel good. That's how we would describe it.
Okay, cool. Well, I guess this was a great show. I really enjoyed having you on, Kyle. And for those watching, please subscribe to Kyle's channel. The links are in the description. He has two channels, actually, Kyle and then Christian Simplicity. And yeah, I'd love to have you on again and have another discussion. Maybe, we can do that in the future. So.
Oh, yeah, for sure. This was a lot of fun. I like your channel. I'd like to thank, I don't remember their name, but someone told me I should go on your channel. So shout out to them.
That's right. Actually, Animated Place.
Yeah, Animated. Yeah, that's them.
Okay. And so Animated Place asked me to ask you to share how we got connected. Like, what's the story? Who is Animated Place and how did this happen?
Yeah, no, it's because of that guy or girl, Animated Place. They commented on one of my videos. They just said that, hey, Rebecca Davis has a channel called Bread of Life where she has on atheists. I mean, the person was very open. I like them. I feel like your audience is genuinely seeking the truth. So thank you to that person. So because of that person, I'm like, okay, well, might as well just reach out to her. It seems like a pretty interesting channel. She seems like a nice lady. So yeah, shout out to them.
Cool. Titan Uranus says Bread of Life is not going to ask my question. I think Titan Uranus was asking, are you a proud boy?
No, that was I'm not a proud boy. I'm not really interested in politics. I think religion is higher order than politics. I'm not trying to just serve some earthly kingdom that, it lasts like 100 years. I'm trying to focus on the kingdom of God. I think you don't change society by focusing on politics. You change it by winning hearts and minds. That's what the early Christians did. Just focus on telling people the truth. And the truth is Orthodox Christianity.
Cool. And this was actually one more question. Sorry, but Jake said, God is perfectly good. Then why did he torture a child with illness so it suffered for a week and then dies? 2 Samuel 12, 15, and 18. Is that what you call good and loving, Kyle?
So I'm not familiar with that verse, but again, that is probably just your interpretation that God tortured a child and you don't understand. We have a finite human mind. Can we understand the infinite goodness of God? Like we don't understand is we think so short term. God is all knowing. He knows everything. He is all good. And again, on your system, how could God be so mean? There's no evil. There's no good on your system. You have no authority to judge God. You have no epistemic certainty. You can't even give an account for ethics. So you're going to get on your moral high horse about God. Okay, what morals are you talking about? Your nihilist morals, your atheist morals? There is no morality on atheism. It's completely subjective. It's ad hoc. It's just like, I don't like God. I don't like this. And again, it's probably just your interpretation. It needs to be read in context. You can quote mine, all this stuff. It needs to be read in context, and it needs to be understood that God is ultimate goodness. God is all knowing.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much, Kyle. Thank you so much to the audience. Glad you guys were here, and I hope everyone has a great day. Bye.
Thanks. God bless.